second by Adam. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to the administrative items. Item 3.1, which is a request for approval for the conditional use of a soil processing operation. And we'll look for city staff for additional information.
Yes, well, it doesn't get us going. So this was actually brought before commission back in January 6th, which the commission did vote to table this item as they needed more information from the applicant. Right. As mentioned earlier, this is a request for conditional use for a soil processing operation known as Husky's Landscaping. It's located generally at 16476 South Ribbit Road. It is in an M1 manufacturing zone. The use itself is a conditional use, and being that the site is over 1 acre, it does require conditional use approval as well. Again, the site here is located on the south end of the property, south end of the city, and with an M1 zoning designation. What the applicant is requesting to do is he's actually requesting approval for a soil operations process on this property that's currently being utilized at this time as for soil production. The applicant has no intention of developing the site. He just wants to use the site for soil processing. His intent is just to bring soil on site, process it, and take it off site. He does not intend to do any mining of the site. He doesn't plan to build any buildings or receive any like retail customers. So this will be strictly off just contracts coming in, contract drivers coming in and moving, dropping off soil and delivering soil to the site. Here, the site plan will just kind of show you how the applicant intends to use this site. Obviously, the access is going to come off of Ribbit Road, which he has an area here designated for loading and unloading of materials. This back area here is where he'll be storing materials and screening and processing that soil. Let's see, the applicant, as I guess, as far as the development of the site, the applicant's only asking to, I guess, requesting to do minimal landscaping on this site. As he's not developing the site, he's just using it for soil production. What he is proposing is a 20-foot landscape buffer across the frontage of Ribbit Road. I know in the prior meeting, the commission did ask, he was requesting 15 prior. They asked it to increase that to 20 feet, which he has done and shown here on this updated site plan. Let's see. In addition to the landscape buffer, per city ordinance, for storage, he is required to screen that storage behind fencing. What he's proposing is storing just in the bulk area section. Staff is recommending that as a condition of approval that the storage area consists of the bins and the processing center. And we are requiring that fencing material, per ordinance, it can be chain link, like a slated chain link. We are requesting that it is at least a masonry wall, just to help, with the durability and to help at least mitigate some of that dust in that area that's generated through that processing. Let's see. So looking at compliance with ordinances, I guess the use is a conditional use on site. It is a conditional use. The applicant has submitted a statement regarding, how to mitigate any additional impacts on the surrounding properties. Staff, we have reviewed those and found them, consistent with those conditional use requirements. In addition to this request, the applicant is requesting a waiver of strict compliance for the landscaping for reduction in the overall landscaping of the site. The ordinance does require that there's one tree installed for every 500 square feet of landscaping. He's asking for a waiver for that requirement. And this is a correction to this PowerPoint from which was probably in your packet. The actual requirement for the overall landscape for this area is 15%. Right now, he's showing 12.5%, so he's asking for a reduction of the overall site landscaping. What he'd be required to install per ordinance is 20,000 square feet. He's proposing 16,000 square feet. The applicant states that any additional landscaping on the site would limit the actual workable area of that site. He's limited between the canal and, just the topography of that site kind of limits the work area where he can perform his soil operations at. Some of the things that have been taken into consideration is there's no water or utilities available on site. We've spoke with the applicant. We are, as a condition, requiring him to have site water brought on site, either stored on site in a tank or brought in with water trucks. That water could be used for mitigating dust, soil production, and watering of his landscaping. He also did mention that there's a possibility for him to actually pull water from the canal with an agreement from, I think it's the Jelby Canal Company. There is electrical close to the site where if there's a potential he needed electrical that could be available. As far as I guess amenities for workers on site, he'll be providing portable lavatories and hand washing stations. As mentioned earlier in our last meeting, there was concern regarding the UDOT access here off of Ribbit Road. I did sit in with a meeting with the applicant and with UDOT regarding this access. What UDOT did disclose is this actual access was created illegally, but they do not have any issues with the applicant using this site at this time, that access at this time, but they are requiring him to go through the permitting process. They are also requiring that he widens the throat of that access from 21 feet to 25 feet to meet their requirements. He is providing a gravel access and a track out pad for the site, which is currently on site. So with the following conditions, staff does recommend approval of this conditional use. If you have any questions for me or for the applicant, he is here.
I have a question. On the 10%, if he included the landscaping behind the canal as landscaping, would that meet our requirement?
To landscape behind the canal?
Not necessarily landscape it, leave it as it is, not touched. It already is landscaped is what I'm trying to say. If he basically preserved it, would that meet our standard is my intent? For landscaping.
Well, I guess the question, if you consider scrub oak or native landscape to be considered, that would fit that requirement. I know currently, the way we do regulate that ordinance, we don't allow them to maintain, well, other than in the hillside overlay zone, we do require them to modify that.
I'm just saying this area is close, I mean, it is more hillside, and that's where I'm asking is, we could potentially deviate, but really not deviate by counting his landscaping. I'm not talking the buffalo grass and things, I'm talking the scrub oak, which in other areas of the community, we've actually put on plats to protect. So I'm just saying that may be an area where we could really count 10%, because on everything I've seen, it doesn't even look like he's planning on using that piece. So maybe we can ask him when he comes up.
Right, and yeah, that was the applicant will speak to that as well. In his statement, he did state that he didn't see it necessary to remove all that scrub oak, that native planting, just to replace it with something you'd have to maintain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully survive.
Yeah, that's what I was more questioning. Cool.
Could you tell me once more what the mitigation is for dust blowing?
So during soil production, that required him to have water on site. So when it's windy or when he's processing the soil, he'll have water on site to water down the site and the soil processing equipment. And in return, there's the 6-foot masonry wall around that processing area. I'm not sure it's going to mitigate all the dust, but I think using the water and et cetera, will reduce that significantly.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
So you had made the comment that, if I heard you right, that the chain link is the requirement,
Right.
but we are looking to go to the mason wall, so that's another additional thing that we can consider towards the landscaping requirement. And then also you mentioned 15-foot buffer is normal, and he's providing 20-foot, is that right?
Actually, it's 20.
20 is the
They can reduce
requirement?
it to-
20 is
reduce it to
normal.
15
Okay.
if they, yeah.
I just want to make sure.
He's just below what is required overall and asking for an exception. So it's 20-foot buffer, which I think makes sense between Redwood Road and what he's doing. And then, I mean, I think we get the applicant up here because I hope, and we'll see, based on what Adam said, that on the other side of Welby Canal, Welby Jacob Canal, that is preserved.
I would rather protect that.
So
than
hopefully
get more
that will happen
rock
as
in the
well.
front.
Any other questions for staff, though, before we get the applicant up?
And just to note too, if, under this conditional use, if he was to expand the site, he'd have to come back to planning commission for approval. So if he had the intention to expand it, then, those other issues could be addressed during that expansion.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Is the applicant present? If you want to just come up and state your name, and then maybe any additional information or
Thank you. Thanks to Mike and Sheldon. This has been a pretty long process. My name is Zachary Hinckley. I'm the owner of Husky's Landscaping, and we're requesting for the conditional use permit.
Awesome. On the other side of Welby Jacob Canal, are you guys preserving or leaving that how it is? I'm guessing just sheer being able to get over there would be difficult anyway.
Yeah, at the moment, that's where to even get across there, we would have to ask Welby Jacobs, be able to get a permit to build a bridge. So that's in the future, but I don't really want to spend much time with doing that right now. So at the moment, it would be preserved just as is for the time being. And you can see with the topography, it's really steep over there, so there's not really much we can do. It just came with the lot. It was one of those things like, well, thanks, but what do I do with that,
The little thing right by the canal that looks like a crossing, is that actually a crossing or just an object? On that?
Looks like there's a bridge.
It
Looks like a little
bridge.
rectangle.
Is there a bridge there?
I don't think so. There is a bridge further to the north there's a home that's up above.
A home access down to
Yeah.
that north?
But we don't have a right of way to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
Okay.
there.
So, any questions for the applicant, though?
There was a question about the wind. We usually don't screen on windy days just because of the dust. We don't want to bother people driving by. And the water does at times. Our trommel screen, it spins the soil instead of shakes it. So it doesn't create much dust when we're using it. And it's maybe once or twice a week, we can process up to 200 to 300 yards a day. And that's enough for right now for us to keep up with. It's just for our own use. It's not for, to really give to any or sell to anybody else, so.
Okay.
I know we're looking at the masonry wall around the soil processing part of it. I guess just kind of a question, the part that's, I guess, west with the hill, do you see a need for that west masonry wall?
If I'm speaking openly, I don't think there's a need for the masonry wall because it's a huge cost to us. And Redwood is so much higher than our property. The line of sight's still going to be able to see over the wall anyways. But I can understand hiding some things behind it, but I'll do whatever is, recommended and needed to be able to help mitigate that. So either way, the wall on the west side is,
Adjacent to the
there's a
canal.
30-foot easement on the Welby Jacobs side. I'm dealing with like 4 entities here. The Jordan Valley Water has that easement, and that's why there's no trees there. They won't let us plant trees over their pipe. And then I'd have to, that was suggested, but I do still need to get permission from the Welby Jacobs to be able to do the west wall there. I can do it at 30 feet, but I don't know if that's at 30 feet or not.
And then is the canal covered right there, or is it open?
It's open.
It's, I think, the dotted line.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's open, it's
But it's
not.
open, it's not
Yeah, it's open.
contained?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they require 24/7 access to that, just in case there's a breach or anything, so.
Additional questions? Any? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can have a seat. Discussion amongst the planning commission?
So I think we should reference that we're keeping the landscape
On the west side of
side
Welby
of
Jacob Canal?
Jacob, and say that that is our 10%. So that
Well,
we're not
well,
deviating
well,
whatsoever.
right now, he's already asked for reduction, and so the reduction
To
is
me, I'm
down.
saying we're not giving him a reduction, we're counting that as the.
Yeah.
He doesn't need a reduction.
He does, right. That area on the other side really is out of play. The way I'm looking at it, he's not
it
developing it,
natural.
he's not doing it, he's preserving it. So if you take the area that is actually east of the canal, and look at that area, he's probably within compliance then at that point.
Well, I guess I
With the
sit
15%.
from the perspective of just depending on how we motion this, that obviously we're allowing a reduction based on them willing to preserve what currently is west of the Welby Jacob Canal.
And if that's the way we want to phrase it, I'm fine
And
too.
I think
but-
that might be a better way to phrase it, because we don't allow reductions unless there's a reason why typically.
But see, that's what I'm saying, is I don't think we actually are allowing a reduction.
No, and I
We're
agree with you,
landscaping on
but
the-
he's not landscaping over there. He's just preserving what's
He's leaving
there.
the native, but it is landscaped, so to me, he is.
And I guess,
And to me,
I'm going to
I
ask
don't
legal,
know how
how
to
is
say
that
that
worded on the?
Objective.
Objectively.
Objectively.
This is a good training opportunity, really, because the scope of our discussion should be, what are the detrimental impacts from this conditional use? What are the conditions, the reasonable conditions that we can apply to mitigate those impacts? So your discussion here should be, what is it we're trying to resolve? If we're talking about the landscaping, if that's just a requirement of the use in general, that's unrelated to the scope of the conditional use. The conditional use is to say, like the fence, for instance, do we need a masonry fence around the materials in order to mitigate the impacts of dust? If the answer to that question is yes, then you have to look at, is that the least impactful or the least, the most reasonable, what's what I'm looking for? The most reasonable solution to mitigating that impact, right? And again, that's based upon
Agreed, but he's asking for a variance to our conditional use. That's what we're trying to say, is if you go to the, he's asking for a reduction
in the landscaping
In the
requirement.
landscaping.
requirement.
And
And this is
And
a
I'm
question
saying,
for
I don't
Michael,
think he
though.
needs a reduction, because I think he's meeting it in a different fashion.
well,
And that's fine.
I think a
right.
play on words, and this is where I'm going, and not a play on words, but more of, there's a reason why we're allowing this. And the reason being allowed is that he's willing to preserve some natural vegetation in that area if he can get a reduction on what's required.
And I think that's totally within the scope of your discretion to make that determination, yes.
So let's talk about the wall, the
Yeah.
fence. So does anybody really see an advantage next to the canal?
No.
I mean, honestly, I see that actually being more of a detriment to the canal than anything else.
I'm with you.
Just to like maintain it, yeah.
I mean, I'd rather see more extension of the wall on Redwood if we're really going to talk about where we want to put a wall. than
And I
necessarily
agree
putting
with
it along
you.
a
I
canal.
agree with you. If there was a place to put it, I would say you extend the wall along Redwood, if anything.
That's what I would say
Yeah.
would be better use of.
What about that
Plan.
south property line? I think we need it there too. But
I
yeah,
do.
right
On the
adjacent
south,
to the canal,
So
I'm in agreement
materials
with you.
don't
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
go.
But, hold on, so this,
mean,
I
it's
think
kinda-
was what he was proposing, but didn't the staff, didn't I see another figure that the wall was actually further than this? Is that right? This isn't the one that was.
And I guess I want to ask more of a question.
There you go.
with
Okay,
that.
I wanted to make sure. That's what the staff was recommending here, I guess.
And I also want to ask the question, based off of the study, what you looked at with different things with what they're using here, does this help mitigate the dust?
Good question.
That is a good question. A lot of the reason for the fencing requirement is just based off the zoning requirements of itself for this particular use. We're just saying that a solid wall, as opposed to a chain link fence, would be, a better option of containing any dust or loose soils on the site. So that's how I was looking at the precast. Is that if there was wind, it would at least contain some of that dust as opposed to blowing it, under or through a fence.
Okay.
Sheldon, before you go, is that west wall against Welby Jacobs, is that something the canal companies requested to keep the soils from contaminating the canal water?
So the ordinance states, and this is again based off the requirements for the MU2 zone for soil for storage on site storage, outside storage, it has to be contained within a fenced area. That's,
So it does need to be contained, okay.
It needs to be fenced then, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a masonry then.
True.
I mean, if the ordinance is saying a fence, okay.
But staff
then we
thinks
got
that
it. We got a
this
fence.
addresses the.
No, I was just thinking maybe the canal company didn't want the soil.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
going
I
into
understand
their
that too, but
canal.
it sounds like the reason for that is just there is a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
But they wanted to put the masonry requirement on. If there is a requirement, my thoughts are, then fine, just leave it as a chain link then. If you have to have a requirement.
west side.
On the west side, we don't need a masonry on that west side. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I
would agree
personally
there.
would rather see the fence along the whole front than worry about
Yeah.
the back, but that's
Yeah.
my.
Well, it sounds
I
like you
think
can't have a
Welby
fence.
Jacobs is a natural division, so.
Yeah,
Well,
like the-
exactly.
The front and the south.
And, yeah, especially with the way the topography is and,
front and south.
you know, your natural. But the other thing is he wouldn't be able to get probably the wall across or the masonry fence across the Jordan Valley easement either.
I was just wondering if we extended it up to the easement, because then you still have good sight lines and things like that.
Switch it.
But that's just me. I don't really, I'm much more comfortable with the new drawing, but I just don't see the advantage against the Welby Jacobs side.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to go much beyond those bays either, personally.
Well, it sounds like, based on Sheldon, that it's required to have it fenced in.
It's required, but I
And
would.
so we could do a chain link on the one side, but it's required regardless.
You could, I was gonna say, we could
Okay.
just let them all be chain link.
Okay,
That makes more sense to me. I mean, save the cost on the masonry against the canal and put it out front and just hold the chain link on the back, on the west side.
Where do you want the fence along the Redwood Road? Where are you proposing it start and stop?
As it's
Where the
shown now.
bays are. Yeah.
With chain link on the west side.
Right, but not extend any further on Redwood.
Well,
That's
I
the
don't
question.
think, yeah, I think the most you could extend it is to the edge of that easement.
That's what I'm wondering. Should you extend it to the edge of the easement?
My thought is
I
no,
don't-
just
I don't
because.
see a need for the use.
Yeah,
no, they're fencing in what they need to.
Okay.
yeah.
And they are landscaping with trees. They are accomplishing that aspect, which will provide a little bit of a buffer as well. So I'm okay with that. Are we ready to make a motion or further discussion on this item? So it sounds like just in allowing a reduction of the landscaping that's required, preservation of the Welby Jacob Canal on the west side of the natural landscape.
Masonry
We're
on
okay
the-
with that. The
on the
masonry
east and
wall
south.
on the east and south side required. We'll need at least a chain link fence on the west side because that's just required. We can't really get around that, but we could allow a chain link on that side. And then anything past that, guys, that we discussed? Okay, and then based on anyone who wants to make a motion on this, those were at least some of the items we discussed.
Can we go to the list of requirements, the staff's recommendations? And then I can make a motion based on those. Yeah, it was showed. I just want to make sure if we just need to make an adjustment. It's probably the last slide. Yeah.
I just want to see how quick you can
Right
get through
there.
those.
So I just wanted to, see, we can make an amendment to item 5 there. And then item 6 here, 10%, that's actually, you said 12.5,
12.5%.
right?
And allowing a reduction in that to preserve the natural landscape on the west side of Jacob.
Jacob Welby
Okay.
Canal.
Do it, all right, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve item 3.1 with staff's 8 recommendations with some amendments to those recommendations. For item 5, the 6-foot masonry wall be required around all storage areas, including the material bins except adjacent to the canal, so the west side.
So the west side needs to be a,
The west side has to meet the requirements for the, a chain link fence there. Item 6, the overall site landscaping to be installed at a minimum of 12.5%.
That was shown.
So that was shown, and that there would be a preservation of the existing natural topography and vegetation west of the canal, and that would be the condition to allow this variance for that. I think that is it.
I'll second
That is my
it.
motion.
Thank you. Motion made by Andy, a second by Adam, and then we'll call for a vote. Forrest?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
And Adam?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Exactly.
We'll move on to legislative items. Item 4.1, which is request for approval to amend the Hairman City official zoning map for property located at 5222 West, 5230 West. And city staff.
Great. Yes, so this is an application for a rezone located on 126th. Here is a vicinity map near the auto mall area, just for some reference. Here's a closer image that shows the current zoning, which is the C2 zone, and then that triangle piece is in the R210 zone. The applicant is hoping to rezone these parcels to the C1 zone. And you might remember that a text amendment came before you a couple weeks ago to change churches to be conditional use in the C1 zone. They're not permitted right now. The applicant eventually is hoping to build a church here and a daycare and daycare/preschool. So those are his future plans. And that text amendment went before the city council on January 26th in a work session, so that is in progress. This is the current land use designation, so it is consistent. And addressing other concerns when we rezone areas. It is still in character with existing development as it was zoned commercial. It has other commercial areas around it. And C1 can lead to, I guess, less harsh commercial or more neighborhood-friendly commercial, and that may be a good divider between those two areas. Just kind of to reiterate that it would, a precast fence is already existing there, as that would be needed with those type of uses, and it would provide benefits to the community. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve these changes to the zoning map. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, thank you so much. If the applicant's present and may have any additional information or anything else they'd like to say. It's okay if you don't.
No, I just appreciate the city's work with us, and I'm the pastor of the church requesting this, and we think it'll be a great benefit to the city, what we're proposing, and I guess I'll take any questions if you have any.
All right, any questions for the applicant? Nope. We've seen you before, I think. I think we're good today. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, this is on for a public hearing as well, so I will open the public hearing at this time, but I will read the public comment and policy procedure. The purpose of public comment is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form and present it to Wendy Thorpe, Deputy Recorder. In general, the chair will allow an individual 3 minutes to address the commission. A spokesperson recognized as representing a group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. Public hearing comments may be submitted by emailing recorder@hairman.org. Did we receive any emails, Wendy? All right, so the public hearing is open. And it looks like we can close the public hearing, and then we'll look to the Planning Commission for additional comments, or if they're ready at this time to make a motion. And one thing I do want to say is changing this to a C1 zone, we still have, I guess, one more step with the City Council to allow this if this is approved today or recommended to the City Council. So there is 1 or 2 more steps, but they're getting there, so.
Don't make me make both motions. There's only two on the other today. Go ahead, Daryl.
Well, I recommend that we approve the 4.1 item for the zoning change to C-1, pending city council approval.
Yeah, recommend approval to the city council. right?
Recommending approval to city council
With staff recommendations.
with staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Awesome. Thank you, Daryl. Second by Adam. And we'll call for a vote. We'll go Adam,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes,
Daryl,
Yes,
Forrest.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time, sir.
thank you.
Are there any additional comments from the Planning Commission?
Not for me.
All right. Seeing none, future meetings, Wednesday, February 9th, 2022, City Council meeting. Thursday, February 17th, 2022, Planning Commission meeting. And Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022, City Council meeting. Look for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
Of course, that was Adam, Wendy. Always Adam.
4 weeks left, I'm done.
Okay.
So I'm done in February 25th, and then the next Friday we go